Chapter 21. Motionless and Emotionless. Raven and Rain were staring at the unconscious Merylesian they had tied up against one of the support beams inside the stable. They turned to each other with constipated looks. Neither looked terribly happy with the outcome, but they both agreed that it had to be done. If they left him standing in the street, it would have undoubtedly led to even bigger problems once Jada and Peyton would return.
Now what?
Rain asked, and blew a strand of hair from her face. Raven shrugged and glanced at the window.
We wait,
he said, but realized that he needed a better course of action than that.
Where the hell are they?
Rain got up to take a peek outside. All she saw was a bluish-white cloud. Not even the buildings a few yards across the street could be seen.
How long has it been since they left?
Raven sighed.
I don't know. An hour and a half? Maybe 2?
Rain turned around, showing great concern in her eyes. She was fidgeting with the lucky vest that Jada had given her before they left Serenity Hills.
You don't think they've run into trouble, do you?
Nah, they're fine, sis. You know your master can wipe out the entirety of Derivo on her own without breaking a sweat? And Peyton? Well, we can always find ourselves another Peyton. There are idiots aplenty.
Not funny.
You worry too much. I'm sure they just got distracted somewhere along the way. I bet Peyton is ransacking some poor blacksmith shop as we speak.
Well, how much longer are we supposed to wait? For all we know, they haven't even sent out the signal yet.
Raven grumbled and turned his head to the tied-up captive.
Let's just focus on dealing with our own ordeal for the moment.
Rain stepped away from the window and crouched down next to her brother when she suddenly realized the crest on the captive's sleeve.
Raven, is that?
Yes,
he said solemnly.
The insignia of the Merylesian royal family.
What is a dragon doing here?
I don't know.
Rain made a sudden clutch for Raven's arm.
You don't think he is after Lord Cato, do you? Or us?
Raven hadn't even thought of that possibility. He had gotten so used to his life in Serenity Hills, he sometimes forgot that he even had a life in Ambria before.
I don't know,
he said, and suddenly felt his anger rising when he thought about the injustice he, his sister, and their father had to endure in the final days before their departure. To think that, even after all these years, the possibility that his past could come back to haunt him made his blood boil. Rain noticed the shift in her brother's demeanour and decided to quickly change the course of the conversation.
He doesn't look like a warrior, though, does he?
Neither do you,
Raven groaned.
What makes you say he's not a warrior?
She shrugged.
He just doesn't seem like one.
Well, we need to think about what we'll do when he wakes up. Maybe he might be inclined to tell you why a non-warrior is wearing the outfit of a dragon, or why a non-warrior is carrying a dangerous weapon on his back.
Raven leaned in closer to the captive and took a whiff.
He sure smells like a warrior to me,
he said, but flinched and bounced back when the captive suddenly opened his eyes. Rain immediately dove forward and pressed her palm tightly against the man's mouth to prevent him from screaming for help. But when she realized he wasn't planning on doing such a thing, she hesitantly loosened her grip. The man was, in fact, not doing anything at all. He just sat there, motionless and emotionless. His eyes were vacant and staring into a deep well of nothingness. He was but a vessel without a captain at the wheel, drooling through his half-opened mouth and barely heaving his chest when breathing. Raven composed himself, leaned in on the captive again, and gave the man a few gentle slaps on the cheek.
Anyone home?
He asked.
Key back!
Rain hissed furiously.
What the frog do you think you're doing?
Raven cocked his head to the side and raised an eyebrow.
What does it look like I'm doing? This guy must have some valuable information for us.
Is he even awake?
Listen, friend,
Raven said and placed both hands on the captive's shoulders.
We can do this the peaceful way, or we can—
Suddenly, the Merylesian turned his head to the window, as if hearing someone out there calling out to him. He began squirming and wiggling, but his feet were bound together and his hands tied behind his back. Raven and Rain both followed the man's gaze, but saw or heard nothing coming from that direction.
Keep your focus on me and answer my questions,
Raven said, turning back to the captive.
Who are you and what are you doing here? What happened in this place? Why is Deriva completely abandoned? Are there any more dragons out there? How is Moralis involved in all this?
The salvo of questions completely whiffed past the man. He only seemed to be obsessed with whatever was going on outside the stable and kept struggling to break free, all the while snapping his jaws wildly around him. Raven darted back to avoid the flails of teeth. He gave his sister a glance and saw that she was getting frightened by their captive's erratic behavior.
What is wrong with him?
She asked, almost on the verge of panicking.
His noises will alert other people. We have to make him stop.
Raven quickly spun around, looking for anything in the stable that could help him silence the captive. It was dark, however, and he could barely see more than a few yards in front of him.
Look away,
he then said to Rain, but hardly gave her any time to do so. Without thinking of the consequences, he straightened his arm in a flash and dug his knuckles into the captive's face with a muffled crunch. Rain let a shrill gasp escape and petrified in fear. The sudden outburst of violence startled her so much she almost weaved her aura to form a protective barrier around her. Raven's punch left the Merylesian captive with a rapidly swelling hematoma on his cheek and a gaping gash across his eyebrows. Blood kept spurting out of the wound and into the eye, but not so much as a moan left his lips.
Talk!
Raven grabbed his captive by the chin and forced the man to keep his jaws locked.
What is your mission here? Why weren't we informed of your presence? Who is in command? Answer me if you value your life.
He retracted his hand and wiped off the blood with a bundle of straw. All of the sudden, the captive seemed to have calmed down, but not in the way that Raven would have wanted. He returned to his vegetative state and once again stared blankly in front of him. Raven scoffed as he took the captive's attitude for refusal to cooperate.
Don't make me do this,
he said coldly and started unbuckling his belt.
We are not enemies as far as I'm concerned, so don't make me treat you like one.
He wrapped the leather strap around his hand and clenched his fist.
We only want some answers. Talk, and you will see your family and friends again. Stay silent, and you will face the alternative.
For God's sake, say something!
Rain urged, but it was to no avail. The man kept quiet.
So be it,
Raven said while taking a deep breath.
Don't say I haven't given you a fair chance.
Each time a strike was dealt, it sounded like thunder rumbling inside the stable. The violence made the horses inside the stalls scamper back and forth anxiously as they tried to avoid the thin stream of blood that kept spilling closer to their hooves.
Key back. Stop.
Rain whimpered when the sound of crunching bones got too much for her to bear. Her voice was fragile and she breathed heavily, nearly breaking down in tears.
Please, stop.
Raven turned around with belligerence still etched into his face, but immediately softened his demeanour as soon as he saw the fear in his little sister's eyes. He looked down and stared at the hands that were covered in blood.
I'm sorry, Rain,
he said quietly and unwound his leather belt.
This is why Kay didn't want this type of life for you.
He turned back to the captive, whose head now resembled a crushed strawberry.
Anyone who chooses to walk down this path will sooner or later be forced to make decisions that go against their nature. In this type of life, we are expected to do whatever is necessary to ensure the mission's success. Moralis isn't supposed to be here. There is a reason they called for our help. This man's presence means that Moralis is scheming something behind our back. I have given him plenty of opportunities to talk.
He climbed to his feet and steadily unsheathed the sword that Cato had gifted him for his 20th birthday. Rain said nothing and didn't know what to say either. She was utterly shocked to see her ever-cheerful brother like this. Her eyes were trembling and she took a few hesitant steps backward, but immediately cowered in terror when a piercing shriek sounded from outside the stable all of the sudden. Raven turned to the window but didn't realize in the commotion that the captive had broken free from his restraint. An unexpected shove in his back knocked him to his knees, and when he looked up from the floor, the man was already diving through the window like a dolphin. Judging from the crashing sound that followed, the landing must have been nowhere near as graceful. He quickly climbed to his feet and ran to the window, but all he saw was a thick barrier of fog that even dampened the direction of the receding footsteps.
God fucking!
I'm so sorry.
Rain said with tears in her eyes.
I messed up. This is all my fault. I never should have interfered.
Never mind all that, Rain. We have to find the guy before he gets the chance to call for support.
Raven jumped through the window and extended his hand to help Rain do the same.
Come on, we can still fix this.